Hey, hello, what's up, and welcome into this week's episode of the Geek Garage podcast. I am Ted, joined as always by show creator David. Say hello, David.
Hello, Ted. How are ya?
All right, that was like a 9. I need you to bring it down to like a 4.5.
I was at a 9 there. You don't want to see me go to 10.
uh, yeah, but obviously you're doing well based on your
Yeah.
intro there.
Hey, it's another day above the daisies, right? As we say.
Yeah,
So,
that's what they tell me. Every day above the dirt is a good one.
yeah.
I put that theory to the test over this last weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
had two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You had like
I had the worst weekend of record for my life. I would say
yeah,
maybe not. Well, I mean, it's in the conversation.
yeah.
Yeah,
You're
two wisdom teeth cut out, and then a second COVID shot. So I was of no use to anyone Sunday. I'll put it that way. But I'm back in the saddle. I'm no worse for the wear, so to speak. So very good
yeah.
to be alive and kicking.
Yeah. You sound great for someone who just recently, not a handful of days ago, had teeth ripped out of their skull and was
With
injected.
pliers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I saw them. I was like, that does not look like dentist equipment. I
Was
have those. Those are vice grips. I have them in my toolbox right now.
what this wasn't this didn't happen to be like in a back alley in like Mexico, did it?
No, there was an office and everything
Oh, that's yeah.
with
Oh, but
nurses and
right, but they had like a tiny chair there that you were trying to figure out what the use case was for that
yeah.
chair.
I took a picture. Like, so I was in the regular chair, right? Obviously, um, at least I hope. Um, and then as I'm looking like down in front of the door to the exam room I was in, there was like a chair that was, I shit you not, like a foot tall.
Hmm.
I took a picture of it and I sent it to you because I was like, who is this for? And you were like, children. And I was like, no.
So like
This,
it wouldn't even be big enough for like a little 2-year-old to sit on. Like,
I think that by the time you have the wherewithal to hold your head up by yourself, you're already too big for this chair.
oh my god, maybe it's
I, I wondered if like it was maybe like a weird doorstop, or maybe somebody was just like, I'm not paying money for a doorstop. I have this old dollhouse chair from my daughter's room that we're just gonna repurpose.
who's like, you know what, screw the $10 it's going to take, maybe $10 to get
I was
like a
gonna say
rubber
I don't
door
even know
stop.
$10.
Yeah, like you could literally just find something lying around,
Just
which
get a brick. Like I don't even.
or steal a brick from somewhere. Yeah.
You're a doctor's office. Get like I don't know. There had to be something better. It was weird and off putting. But yeah, so that's the experience of how I have 2 less teeth now. How's your week?
Well, I have more teeth. I haven't gotten rid of
That's
any.
weird. I feel like that should be explained.
Nah, I haven't gotten rid of any since I had to get my wisdom teeth out. But yeah, overall, the week so far, it's only Tuesday, but everything's going fine and dandy. Great weather outside. Since it seems like the summer or just the warm weather is like finally upon us and it
Yeah,
doesn't have any plans on going anywhere, my allergies are finally like, okay, we're going to stop fucking with you now.
they're stabilized. Yeah,
Yeah.
that heat came out of nowhere. Like it was comfortable and
Yeah.
nice, and then
Hmm.
suddenly remembered. Oh wait, it's Tennessee. Fuck you. It's
Yeah.
90 degrees now for no explicable reason other than God hates us.
Right. I think the world just opened up and it was like, here you go, 90-degree temps and cicadas.
Yeah, yeah,
Cicadas for everyone.
yeah. The Earth is healing. Nature is healing.
Yeah, luckily, I think the majority of the cicadas are going to miss us. Sorry for any listeners that happen to be east of us, like Memphis. I think,
Memphis is west of us, actually, but thank
are
you.
they? Cool.
Yes.
Well, I never took geography, but
You know what it is, and yet you don't know your cardinal directions.
um, yeah, I am no good. But yeah,
No.
if you are experiencing the cicadas right now, I'm sorry. We know
Yes.
exactly what that is
Yeah, it
like.
sucks.
Yeah.
My memories of cicadas, and then we'll get this shit show on the road properly. But my memories of cicadas include being at a bonfire as a younger man,
Young chap.
um, a young chap, and a cicada flying into the fire and exploding. So
Oh, nice.
nothing puts a damper on the evening, and the young lady that you would like to kiss, quite like a cicada exploding 4 fucking feet away from you.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I was cockblocked by Mother Nature. To my present girlfriend, if you're listening, that was years ago. She meant nothing to me. Moving right along. We'll edit that out. It's fine. Anyway, this week's episode is number 102.
Yeah.
And we are covering volume 2 of the Netflix series Love, Death, and Robots, which has been outstanding for the first 2 volumes, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah. But before we get to that, a few things to cover. First, as we always do about this time, thank you to all of our subscribers, both old and new. For those of you that have been around for a while, Stockholm Syndrome is working beautifully. And for those of you that are new subscribers, you have made a terrible mistake, but it's okay because we perfected Stockholm Syndrome, so you'll forget about that in time.
We should just rename the podcast Stockholm Syndrome, the podcast.
Right. Do you hate yourself? Not yet, you don't, but you will. Yeah, but no, seriously, thank you all for tuning in. It's kind of crazy to me that
people listen.
People have they place value on what we have to say.
Yeah.
At least insofar as to spend an hour or so a week with us. That's pretty cool.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit.
Sorry, I was just going to interject. I mean, before we get into the meat and taters of this week's topic, I had one new talking point or topic that we could talk about for just a second.
By all means, sir.
But they just announced the dates and the brand new venue for MTAC, or the Middle Tennessee Anime Convention, for next year.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So it is going to be at I believe it's called the Grand Hyatt downtown. I don't even know if it's built yet because I clicked on the link on the MTAC website, which directs you to the hotel, and it's still like digitally designed, like artist renderings. So I think that it's still either being built or like they don't have any like pictures yet of it.
The sign of a good establishment is when their website doesn't have any photos yet.
But the artist renderings look absolutely beautiful. And just the fact that it's coming back is super fucking exciting. I mean, Ted and I, I talk about you like you're not fucking here. Ted, you and I went a couple years ago, the last year that it was available before a good old Rona struck like a hot knife through butter. And we had a good time. We went as press, technically, but
yes.
We just harassed people, said like, hey, listen,
well, maybe
here's a button.
Is not the word to use, but
well, I mean, we went up to people politely, and
there you go.
We complimented them on their cosplay, and handed them a button. And if they happened to be a Knights Templar, then we said,
we apologize profusely for what would happen in the future. Yes, my favorite interaction we had that weekend was when I asked someone if they had podcasts in their universe, and they looked at me like I had 4 heads, and I was like, okay, don't get in on the joke then, dick.
Yeah, that's the thing with cosplayers, is that they are like all in, or they're just wearing a costume, and both are perfectly fine.
No, right, like it's not we're not casting judgment on either of those, but it's funny you mentioned that, because I had the exact opposite interaction as well, where I asked a guy if they had podcasts in his universe, and he gave me like a 10-minute breakdown of their universe, and concluded with saying it's basically like Earth with fantastical elements. And I was like, why didn't you that's one sentence, you could have just led with that. Yes, it's basically Earth with fantastical elements, conversation's done, we're moving on. But no.
You should have been like, can I introduce you to my friend David? He is also incredibly unnecessarily fucking long-winded.
you guys would still be talking right now, 2 years later.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, but no, that's cool. It's good to see a local mainstay
Mhm.
be able to come back after 2 years
Yeah.
of not of not being able to do anything because of this fucking garbage goddamn disease. But
Yeah, and upgrade to a larger venue. Like, I mean,
yeah, which
MTAC
means
was. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say this just means tickets are gonna be more money. So
Well, I mean, not for us if we qualify again for the press passes,
that's
which
right. That was a subtle brag from Mr. David Dassaw.
yeah,
But yeah, no, it's cool that it's coming back, and I hope that you know, at least I hope it's able to come back. Coronavirus, you never know. So
yeah. But no, it's
yeah,
exciting stuff, and we're excited to have that be coming back and graduating to a bigger venue because everyone that's been to MTAC,
it's
especially
crowded.
the last several years, it's just like the Music City Sheraton. It's a fantastic hotel. The people that run the hotel do a fucking bang up job.
They're fucking saints.
Yeah, like they have, yeah, the patience of saints, literally. But it's yeah, MTAC grows exponentially every year, and the last couple of years, it's just there was no
It's
elbow
just too
room.
much. It's
Yeah,
just too much. Yeah.
so yeah, it's nice that it's going to be downtown. It's going to be hell getting in and out, Ted, like you said
Yeah.
off
Yeah. It's
air.
gonna suck.
But yeah, it's definitely for the better for the most part.
Yeah. One other quick thing before we get the podcast on, I totally spaced on this, but we have to do a walk back from our last episode,
Oh, do we?
where we talked about HBO Max or Warner Media, I should say, had announced that Dune would no longer be coming to HBO Max the
Oh
same day
yeah.
it was released in theaters. Apparently, somebody heard us talking about that, and we're like, "No, fuck those guys. They're not breaking this story," and changed their minds, or maybe the story was misreported in the first place. We're not really sure, but it did come out that somebody at Warner Media was like, "No, that's bullshit. It's still coming to HBO Max." So the moral of the story here is, don't listen to us. We have no idea what we're fucking talking about. I think.
It should be don't listen to like sites that are trying to report the news that's not everywhere else. Cause like I remember that kind of like quote unquote breaking, and it wasn't like, you're scrolling through social media and it's like 5,000 different news outlets and blog sites or whatever are posting the same thing. Well, that whole thing about Dune only being out in theaters was in like maybe one or two articles, maybe if that.
So
And
you're telling me we basically fell for the anti-vax equivalent of new like nerd news?
it's quite possible.
Well,
But
that's good to know.
but yeah, I mean, it might have been one of those things where like, the inside sources or whatever that these fuck faces had, they're it was just wrong information, and so HBO and Time Warner or whoever had to come out and officially say, yeah, that was incorrect. Like Dune is still coming out. So
What are you gonna do?
what are you gonna do?
Anyway, so we're morons, like I said, but don't listen to us. Moving right along to the purpose of the podcast. Like I said, Volume 2 of Love, Death, and Robots.
Yeah.
David, tell us about how we got around to deciding we were going to do this topic specifically for this episode.
Sure. So I posted a Facebook poll. This was a couple days ago, so we actually managed to get it out there a couple days in advance.
Woo! Progress.
Yes, as opposed to like the morning of the podcast, and then make sure that no one can participate in time. But yeah, we basically just asked, hey, what would you rather hear us talk about? Because you and I were between Love, Death, and Robots Volume 2 and Army of the Dead. We both we saw both of them, both you and I, and we both enjoyed both of them for the most part. And we were kind of at a stalemate, like, and plus we had to have a bunch of movie episodes coming up soon, so we're like, it could go either way. So we just decided to throw it out there on the Facebook poll, like, what do you want to hear us talk about? And the overwhelming majority voted for, you guessed it, Love, Death, and Robots. It was basically a like a 90% vote of,
Yeah,
like,
it was a runaway.
yeah.
It was,
Thank
A good
you
old
for
fashioned ass whooping. In fact.
thank you for that one person that voted for Army of the Dead. I mean, like,
Which I have to believe at this point was probably just a misclick.
right? They meant to click on the other one.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure we're going to cover Army of the Dead as well. It might be next week or at a later date. I don't know, but
Right.
um, yeah. So yeah, using that as a segue into our actual topic, which of course is Love, Death, and Robots, Volume 2. So yeah, um, Ted, as you may remember, Love, Death, and Robots Volume 1, the discussion on that was one of our very first episodes together. Like,
Yeah, I believe that was the second episode we did, if memory serves.
yeah, and that wasn't even like you weren't even officially part of the podcast. You came on for what was it? Velvet Buzzsaw was the first one.
Uh,
I think that was the first one.
I
Um,
thought the Matrix was the first one, but I could be wrong. I know, like, we did the Matrix, Velvet Buzzsaw, and then this all in pretty,
yeah,
I think, in order. I don't remember
I want
exactly.
to say Velvet Buzzsaw was the first one, and then like either this or the Matrix was the second one. But yeah, I mean, either way, like you said, they were all in rapid succession, and suffice it to say, you weren't on the podcast in an official capacity. So obviously, things have changed a lot since then. You are now on the podcast.
Yes, and
On,
there's a whole other series of Love, Death, and Robots, so which
yes,
we'll get to eventually, I'm sure.
right after we're done bullshitting. Um, but yeah, Ted, overall thoughts on this second volume or season or whatever you want to call it. Um, what did you think of it?
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Duh. I thought the first one was great. I thought it was a breath of fresh air. It kind of hit all the right buttons
Hmm.
for me in terms of a lot of the things that I like that I'm into. I liked the second one. I thought that I don't know that it necessarily had the variety that the first one did, but I think part of that is because it was about half the length as the first season, which for whatever reason, I'm guessing it's just a COVID casualty.
Sure.
But you know, I enjoyed the hell out of the second series as well. What about you? What did you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. Like, I will agree, it didn't have the variety of animation styles like the first volume did. I mean, the volume one had everything across the board. Like, it had ultra realistic animation. It had like 2D, 3D. It had like old school hand drawn animation. Like, it had,
Rotoscope.
yeah, like anime
I think it had
style.
a live action episode as well too, or a partially live action episode.
Yeah, there was at least one or two. Like, there was the episode with Topher Grace and
Topher Grace, how's he
Mary
getting work?
Elizabeth Winstead, I
Yeah,
believe.
what an odd pairing.
Oh, right. Yeah, and they just it looked like they just moved into an apartment or house or whatever, and they had like a whole evolution of civilization in their freezer.
Hmm.
Kind of an interesting one, but yeah, overall, I loved it. Um, I kind of agree with you that I feel like it's kind of a COVID casualty. Like, they split it up. I could be wrong. But, maybe there's a method to the madness, but I for some reason I'm kind of anticipating a larger variety in animation style in Volume 3. I am excited that it's like we don't have to wait as long. It seems like we only have to wait until, like, I think October for
Yeah,
Volume
it's coming out
3.
this fall. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So I'm cool that they spaced it out like that. Like, yeah, it's a bummer that Volume 2 is only 8 episodes, whereas like Volume 1 was like 18 or 19. But honestly, I'd much rather have it this way, like, to where you can kind of parse it out a little bit and, enjoy some now and then let it digest, rewatch maybe a couple times, and then you have something to look forward to later. So, um, but yeah, overall, I loved it. I don't think there was a bad episode in here. Um, I laughed, I cried, um, I
Felt feelings.
yeah, I felt feelings. I got horny for robots. So basically par for the course
Yeah,
as
that's a
for
little.
what I experienced the first go around. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I think that this series, in some ways, had a lot more quote unquote classic tropes that were hit with regards to sci-fi and horror.
Hmm.
And I'll talk a little bit more about that. There's one episode in particular that I'm thinking of for that.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I heard from some people that were like, it's not as good as the first series, and they're wrong. Those people are wrong. They're wrong. Um, yeah. So thus ends our spoiler-free review or
Yeah.
discussion of Volume 2. So if you have not watched it yet, definitely encourage it. Number one,
Hmm.
and especially if you're going to listen to the rest of the podcast, we're going to spoil all the episodes for you, all 8 of them. They're just ruined.
Right. Yeah.
So
And if you have the free time, like this isn't something that I've had the time to do yet,
mm,
but I definitely did it with the first volume. Just go to like the Wikipedia page or whatever. Just Google the series and find the individual animation groups because it's these small mom and pop shop like animation teams that did these. It's not like these big giant companies like Pixar or whatever that 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 do these. They're like small teams that kind of do these. So it's really cool to look into their organizations and what they do. So definitely highly suggest kind of paying tribute that way
for sure,
is just
for sure, I
giving
can
them
dig
a
that.
look up. So but yeah, you want to get started with the first episode.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, first episode was oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna do this like last time, and if you were with us last time, this is not necessary, or I guess a refresher. But if you weren't with us last time and you're or a new subscriber, we basically just went through the episodes in, well, the order that they were, I guess, released. So if you just press play, but I think Netflix does this weird thing where like
Well, yeah. So
they're
I don't
out
know
of
if they did
order.
this for series 2, but for the first series, they had 4 different um, episode orders, or I guess 4
Okay,
different orders for the episodes
that makes
that they
sense.
released randomly. So I think David and I, by luck of the draw, had the same order on our respective Netflix queues.
Hmm.
But I'm not sure that they did that for the second series. We're going to do them, I think, just conveniently. I don't know if this is convenient or if this is the way they were actually intended to be released and Netflix didn't change anything up this time. But we're going to go in the same order as the Wikipedia page is in terms of episode order. So, um, yeah.
Yeah. So Ted, the first one is called Automated Customer Service.
Yes.
What did you think about this one? I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's definitely the most, I think, comedic episode this go around
Yeah.
or this volume.
Yeah.
It's about a woman. Well, let me back up. So it looks similar to the future as shown by Wally. I
Uh,
thought,
yeah.
where basically everything's done by robots and humans are all just lazy and getting like it shows them living in this what looks like a retirement community.
That's what I was gonna say. It kind of like I didn't see anyone like there was robots and there was old people.
Yeah,
And like yeah, the animation style was, man, it was something else. Like
it was very like I don't want to say it was like derivative of like a Pixar film because it was similar in some ways. Like it was definitely cartoonish,
mhm.
um, and not. It didn't strive to be like realistic looking depictions of people,
No, not at all.
uh,
It was very
which is
caricature-y.
yeah, which is not a slight by any stretch. Like I thought
No.
the art was great,
Oh yeah.
and very fitting for this episode somehow.
Yeah.
But it shows everybody in their community. Everything's being done by robots. Uh, our main character for this one is an older woman named Jeanette. who is experiencing some malfunctions with her house cleaning robot called VacuBot.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's contacting customer service or customer support to try and get that remedied. And it kind of starts spiraling out of control. David, do you think that's a fair way to put it?
I think that is an accurate assessment of
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah. It's very funny. Like I said, this is the most overly comedic or intentionally comedic episode in this series.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know who voiced the customer service associate, or, well, I assume it was a, like one of those awful phone trees,
Mm.
that you get into where you have to, basically pray to get through to a human being.
Right. Yeah.
And it's actually funny because I know that on a lot of, or this used to be the case on a lot of actual customer service hotlines. If you swore, like if you cursed in frustration, it would automatically put you through to a human.
Really.
Yeah, and in this episode, there's kind of a joke where she swears, and the thing is just like, well, we've detected that you're very frustrated, so why don't you take a few minutes and calm yourself down if you want to continue this, basically.
Yeah, she's like in her bathroom, like hiding from the robot.
From this killer
And
robot.
it's like,
yeah.
have you calmed your sassy boots down?
Yeah.
I was like, that was something that I didn't catch on the first go around, and I caught it when I rewatched all the episodes the other day, and I was like, holy fuck, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was a great line.
Yeah,
like I said, I don't know who voiced that character, but their
job.
timing, their comedic timing was fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode's great. It as I said, it just keeps escalating and escalating to the point where her neighbor tries to save her and then gets tased. He's got a shotgun, and it's like they do this dramatic lock eyes, and he gives her this look like he's about to be the hero, and then the goddamn thing just tases him. It's so funny.
So yeah, I was like, oh, in the face. And yeah, like, and I also loved how, like, at the very beginning, where they have that brief interchange, like through the window, where she like waves at him, and he's like, he's stroking something, but it's concealed, and it's his shotgun, but like it looks overtly sexual. And
right,
and I was like, what? I thought it was going to come back in some form or fashion, but it didn't.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, and so I thought that was an interesting choice of like just having that little bit in there. I guess it comes with the territory of, shorter episodes. You don't have the opportunity to explore everything. So
I also like that as they're driving away on the golf cart, which is a funny touch in and of itself, but as they're driving away to escape this, the customer service or the customer support offers, for an additional fee, they can sign up for like the termination whitelist so that they can be saved, basically. And I was like, that is such a great joke, because like that is such a good upsell. I'm just like, God, I'm amazed that's such a good pull.
Right. But like, all humor aside, I feel like this is something that could actually happen. Like when you get to the point of like your entire house being like run by quote unquote smart objects, or like you got your smart light bulbs, and you got your vacuum robot, and everything's running on like the same operating system and save wavelength, and you do it all that way, so just ease and convenience. But like in this instance, like it all works in tandem, and it comes to a colossal halt in a very negative way for her. Like she attacks the robot vacuum by suggestion of the person on the phone, the automated voice, and and it's like that your robot vacuum has detected that there may be an intruder, so all the doors are locked.
Yeah, all the doors are locked, and you are now a target
Yeah.
because you attacked it. And she was like, "You told me to."
Yeah, and it's like everywhere that your robot vacuum has touched is his territory, and it's going to scrub the life forms of everyone that has touched it.
Yeah, I think that overall it's a very good episode that does a great job of making light of what is essentially and really a very dark premise.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it's yeah, it might as well be some Black Mirror shit, but they managed to make it super funny. So yeah, that, definitely a great way to start out the second volume. So um yeah, move on to the second one, Ice.
Yes,
Yes. Um so yeah, the second episode was called Ice, and we got some fucking giant ass frost whales, right?
yes, that was the highlight. One of the highlights of the whole series for me personally.
Yeah. Of
Yeah,
course, you and I have discussed numerous times by now of our mutual affinity for um, the larger whale species like blue whales, and that's basically what we got here was like the the frost or ice version of whales. But
yeah,
yeah, this might be like I really enjoyed this episode. I loved the animation style of this, like the very
I agree.
blocky, geometric shape type of animation that this has. Um, though my main gripe with it, or really my only gripe, is the whole modded thing. Like I didn't really get that. Like I understand with shorter episodes and shorter run times, you don't like that, you kind of play that to your advantage, like you're supposed to leave a little bit to the viewer's imagination, and kind of let them run with it rather than spell it all out for them. But I didn't really understand the whole modded thing. Like Ted, maybe you picked up on that a little bit more, but
Yeah, so to be modded or humans being modded is like a big trope in sci-fi and like cyberpunk in particular.
okay.
So I think that from that perspective, it was just like you know just hitting a genre trope or subgenre
Okay,
trope.
that's probably it then. Just
My
a genre trope that I missed out
right,
on.
my guess would be, and again, I've said this a lot on the podcast. I don't like to assume intent,
Hmm.
generally speaking, but I wondered based on some of the discussion around the modded versus unmodded if it was supposed to be like a sort of like a stand-in for like bigotry of another kind,
Mm, yeah.
um, which sci-fi has tended to be, at least over the last 30 years or so, one of the more progressive subgenres, um, or genres in fiction. So it's possible that was kind of the intent behind that, or it might have just been like, oh, look at the weird normal person, like.
Right. Yeah.
um, but yeah, I I wasn't overly enamored with the story of
Hmm.
this episode.
Yeah.
I
It was so.
Yeah, I mean it's basically at its core about two brothers, coming together and one trying to be accepted.
Right.
The non-modded, or as they're called in this episode, the extra. Um, I agree with you 100%. Though I loved the art style. I loved the backgrounds
Hmm.
and the characters and things. I just like the story. I was just like, nah, it wasn't bad. It just didn't really do anything for me personally.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely understandable. I felt kind of the same way. Like it was, aside from the visual element and other parts, like I didn't really feel like I had anything new to say, but it more than well just picked up the slack with the animation style and the overall visual effects. Like it's just absolutely incredible. um I loved it. So um you got any more thoughts on that one before we move on to the next one?
Frost whales for life, but otherwise, no, I have nothing else.
I legit want a tattoo of a frost whale. Like
Yeah,
that would,
they were dope.
yeah. You're already kind of halfway there. You got a tattoo of a whale, right?
Yes, I do. I
Yes.
do.
It's yeah, that good old Moby Dick.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so next one in the list is Pop Squad. And the only one I believe that kind of made me cry. Like it was pretty emotional for me as a parent to
It was a
watch
heavy
this.
episode.
Yeah, it was fucking heavy as shit, man.
And you want to hear something interesting?
Yes.
This was directed by the same woman who did Kung Fu Panda 2 and 3.
What?
Yeah.
What? Oh
Yep.
my god. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
She has an Oscar. Or, well, I don't know if she won. She was nominated for it,
Okay.
at least.
So I never saw any of the Kung Fu Panda movies. I know like people like them. Like,
Yeah.
apparently they're pretty good. I just for some reason never got around to seeing them. Even with having kids, like, they're more into like the Disney stuff anyways. And I
Right.
believe that's DreamWorks. Um but yeah, maybe I should go back and check them out and have a cry about some pandas. And
Yeah. Jennifer, I believe it's Jennifer Yu Nelson.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. She's had a pretty long career in animation and is now up at has been for a while now. Uh, like I said, she directed Kung Fu Panda 2 and 3, which is
Okay.
no small feat. So she's
Sure.
she's had a pretty successful career out of animation and things like that. But
Right.
that blew my mind when I saw that. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pop Squad is basically about that you get to live forever, but the trade-off is that you can't have any kids. And they even have a a clever line in there when the police officer, for lack of better words, is he has his little rendezvous with, I guess, his girlfriend. And he
Mhm.
says, we like, he points to an actual party, but he refers to a party, in a metaphorical sense. Like, you can't keep having this party if you keep letting people in, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that
Referring to overpopulation.
right. So that, obviously, if you want to, I think every one of these 8 episodes you could dive into the deep, like, they have a deeper meaning, and
100%.
and
100%.
and I think, overpopulation is definitely one of the deeper meanings with this. But I think there's a little bit more that this episode is trying to say, other than like the world is overpopulated. Like, I think it has a lot to say about, the value in um the value of family, and focusing on others, and focusing less on yourself. Like, obviously there's value in focusing on yourself, but you know anyways, so yeah, this the guy,
He
he
kills them
works.
babies.
That's what he does.
Just to
uh,
be blunt, he caps them little kids,
yeah.
them children's.
um I
They
don't know
get
what.
got.
Yeah, I guess the same happens to the adults. But yeah, there's like there's the city in the sky where all the people that live forever, that's where they live. And then there's the underworld, where it is gross and disgusting,
Mm-hmm.
for lack of better words. And
I,
yeah, go ahead.
I do like at the end where he finds the young woman and follows her home and finds that she has a baby or a toddler,
Hmm.
and then as his partner meets him there, his police partner, and they end up shooting one another. I like that he stops and kind of looks up, and you see the ruins of the old city as she's living on the outskirts of it, and it just really drives home that um I think it really drives home the point of, like, that their society, his society, has really detached themselves from nature, and thus nature has reclaimed the old, and she's living among that on the
Right.
outskirts of it. I thought it was a great final final segment.
Yeah. Ted, have you? I'm pretty sure I've asked you this, and I think you said no to seeing the movie Equilibrium.
No, I have not.
This the broad spectrum speaking. This short reminded me of the premise for Equilibrium. Uh, just with the shift in character development, with the main character being like the hard ass, and you have your secondary character, in this case, her his partner, and then all of a sudden he slowly starts to change his mind, but she still has the same opinion, and there's a big face off. It's kind of, spoiler alert, it's kind of the same in Equilibrium. So uh but yeah, I man, like, the scene where, he, the two of them are sitting at the table in her house that they're shacked up in, and she makes that desperate attempt to get his gun, and she just slams her on the table. Like, it was, yeah, it was heavy.
It was heavy. Yeah, heavy is a good word for it.
Yeah. But like that whole sequence afterwards when he comes out, and like, I don't know if like she just tracked him, or like maybe he radioed her that, his location, but that whole thing, like, without any words being spoken, and it just happened so quickly that he's coming out of the house. She's looking at him like, what's going on? And like, you hear the baby crying, and she knows exactly what's going on. He knows that she knows. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's so good the way that it happened so organically, without words, so quickly. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's very well done. I agree.
Yeah. So yeah, that way, like I said, it got me as a parent. I was like Brian from Family Guy. Until you have a child, you will never know the pain. But yeah. Anyways, yeah. Any last thoughts before we move on to the next one?
No, I do not.
Okay. Ted, I know you were a pretty big fan of this next one, the Snow in the Desert.
Yeah, this was in my top two or three, I think, for the series.
This one was
Excuse me, or
pretty
for
good.
this season of the series at least. Um, Snow, the main character of this one, an albino man.
Hmm.
I don't know why that's important, but they felt the need to make that a character trait.
Well, I mean, it makes sense for. I mean, I don't know if Snow
His,
is his
I
Christian
feel
name, but
right. I feel like they came up with the name Snow and were like, he has to be albino. I feel like one precipitated the other, but it's fine. Um, he is a wanderer on a desert planet, or what appears to be a desert planet. We find, in a few moments that there's some civilization to it. Who is being hunted for his unique physiological ability of regeneration,
Mhm.
basically making him immortal.
Right.
We found out he's a badass at a bar
Hmm.
because three bounty hunters try him and lose, basically.
Right.
We also meet a mysterious woman there who saves him, and she ends up following him, revealing that she is a secret agent, basically trying to get him, Snow, to come with her willingly so that her people can study his physiology.
Hmm.
Um, they end up bonding, I guess. And she takes pity on his old ass because she finds out that his wife committed suicide about 100 years ago because, as he says, she got old and I didn't.
Hmm.
Which seems like it would be depressing. Yeah.
I gotta imagine so. Like, I mean, so my question is like, he looks to be about what, like maybe in his 40s,
I would
maybe,
say
or
that his character
50.
design is probably around the mid 40s or late 40s.
Yeah. So like, does that mean that he's still aging, or is this one of those scenarios where like he is going to look like that until like the day that he actually dies? Like,
So I don't know, and I don't know that this much thought was put into
mhm.
it. But I would think that he probably still ages, albeit at a very slow rate.
Yeah, that would be my guess. Like, if I had to wager a guess, it would be that, he just he still ages, the way you do, where you start young and then get old. The opposite of Benjamin Button.
Mm.
But he does it much slower than your average Joe. My question was, why the balls? Like, those three bounty hunters, they come up and they're like, we need your balls. And
Yeah, there's a bounty out on your balls. Um, I think that's just like, I mean, that's another kind of thing that we've seen before in other media. That's in Fight Club. They're like, you told us whoever talks about it, we got to take their balls.
yeah, yeah.
Um, in a lot of old mom movies, it's like, I want his balls and things like
Mm,
that. So I think it's just kind of like something that has been said before. I don't know that there was necessarily any significance to it. I
sure.
mean, maybe they wanted his seed, I guess, but I can't
That's
imagine.
yeah, I think I mean, collecting a a a physical bounty off of someone, like, in the times of old, it was the head, bring me their head. and
Sure.
and now, like you said, in Fight Club and several other, books and movies and other pieces of media, it's the balls for a man, because it's what makes you a man.
Hmm.
And so, like, you take someone's balls and you're like, yeah, you're not what makes you a man anymore. So that was kind of my guess, but I was wondering, like, do they want his balls so, like, they could extract his semen and make more people that are like him? But would that even work? Like, if that was the case,
Yeah,
yeah,
I,
so
I don't I don't I don't I don't know, and frankly, I don't want to find out.
yeah,
But yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like if it
Anyway,
was important, they would have explored it a little bit more.
sure,
So,
sure.
yeah.
He's ambushed by another set of goons
Hmm.
and sustains some heavy injuries. The mysterious woman saves his life again, but is shot in the process, revealing that she is a cyborg. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Um, basically, it shows that, or it's explained that after an accident, her brain was put into a robot body, not unlike the Terminator,
Hmm.
or RoboCop, I should say.
Right.
Um, and that she is also virtually immortal. Oh, heart eyes. They can bond over that, uh, and their loneliness. So, uh, I, I really like this episode. I thought there were some good philosophical questions that it raised, in addition to just being a great sci-fi short.
Yeah.
Um, so I was a big fan of this one. Plus, the animation is like, there were a couple of times when I was watching this where I was like, this looks like a fucking photograph. Like, this looks like it's real.
Yeah, it really looked like something that they shot maybe with mocap suits, and
Yeah.
and just, did animation around it. I feel like maybe that was actually the case. Um so so yeah, but no, I was also a fan of this one. Thought it was great. The animation was fucking stellar. I loved I love any instance in any story in any piece of media where the girl saves the guy, because for basically eternity, it's been the guy saving the girl, and it's retrogressive, and we've all seen it uh, played out a billion different ways. So yeah, anytime that we can see the girl saving the guy, it's a breath of fresh air, and, go girl power. So I'm all about it. But yeah, the next one in Z list is the tall grass. And this one was kind of spooky a little bit, right?
Yeah. This reminded me a lot of the classic like horror stories that you used to see in like dime store novels and
Right.
and and shit like that. Um, I loved this episode.
Yeah, it
I
was
really,
really
really
good.
did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Nah.
No, I was just gonna say the premise is pretty simple. A train breaks down in a field full of tall grass. A passenger steps out, despite the conductor's warning, because he wants a cigarette. He sees a lot of strange lights in the grass and goes to investigate. Then he gets lost, as one does, of course, and finds out that the lights are actually some kind of crazy zombie ghost demon creatures coming from out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
She then, at that point, gets really real.
Yeah.
The creatures start to attack him, chasing him around, and when all seems lost and he's about to get his face bit off, boom, conductor saves him.
Yep.
Um, like I said, this just reminded me of an excellent short story. And it ends with the conductor telling him, every now and then the train breaks down here in the same spot, and he believes that it's that field holds the doorway to another world.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, like the train unlocks the doorway to some other
yeah,
universe or world. Yeah.
and he just tells him, he's like, I wouldn't share this with anybody because they won't believe you. And then it just kind of, he walks into the train and the episode ends. But man, I loved this episode. Like I said, it hit a lot of the classic buttons for me
Mm-hmm.
personally, and so I dug it a lot.
Yeah. I love that last line of that you just mentioned. Like, I wouldn't mention this to any of the other passengers. They're not going to believe you anyways. So, like, the first time I watched, like I said, I revisited all these episodes a second time. The first time I was like, my head went to like, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Like, he was just saying no one's gonna believe you anyways, that kind of tone. But the second time around, it felt more like he was saying it as I have been there. Like, I remember experiencing these creatures for the first time and trying to tell people what I saw, and they didn't believe me. So he's speaking from personal experience. Like, that's kind of what I got out of it the second time around. Um,
Mm.
and so yeah, I feel like this is another one of those episodes with some deeper meaning that you could, if you want to dive into, uh, of, I don't know, um, maybe just your average ghost story. Like, a lot of people, we talked about this on the ghosts and spirits episode from our informal paranormal series. We talked about a lot of people having these experiences, and then you have, Ted, I know you kind of file yourself under the kind of non-believer people, and there's people that try and explain their experiences to others that kind of call it bullshit. And so I feel like it's an exploration in kind of those scenarios a little bit. Maybe I'm misreading intent, but that's kind of what I got out of it, along with some other things that I'm still kind of mulling over. I feel like it might be good for another couple of rewatches. But yeah, definitely a good horror episode. Actually, we have two back to back good horror episodes. This one and the next one, hence the back to back thing, which we can get into if, Ted, you don't have any final thoughts on the tall grass.
No final thoughts.
Okay. So yeah, the next one is All Through the House, and it's a Christmassy themed episode, except where Santa is a fucking demon from hell or some crazy shit. This I'm still deciding, but it's definitely one of my favorite episodes. It is so fucking weird and scary and creepy. Like, they did such an amazing job. Like, that pseudo claymation style of animation that they chose to do this in, like, I think boded so well. Like, everything is super soft and kind of hazy, and it has that very um like childlike wonder kind of feel to it. um because it's Christmas Eve, and everything is soft, and then they come downstairs because they think they hear Santa, and it turns out to be this crazy demon, or whatever the hell it is. I mean, it's basically Santa Claus, but Santa is a demon that has like hands on its face, right? And it pukes packages.
Yeah, pukes out gifts. Yeah, I thought this is a very. I was very amused by this episode. Um, excuse me. The idea of Santa Claus is kind of creepy
Mm-hmm.
on its face, right?
Yeah.
Like some random dude just comes and gives us presents and judges us as naughty or nice based on some arbitrary list. That's weird. Why the fuck do we teach kids that? Um,
Right.
but the twist that they're like, oh, it's Santa, and they get down there and it's a goddamn monster, I thought was genius.
Yeah, it is genius. It's
I like
Belschnickel.
that. Yeah, I like that. He just goes good and like pukes up a gift for each of them and
Right.
then leaves. I thought the
Stay
final
good.
line, yeah, I thought the final line of the episode where I believe it's the sister asks
Yeah.
her little brother, like, what would have happened if we were bad?
Right.
You would have gotten eaten. Is the answer to that? They don't say it, of course, but that's basically what. I think their eyes get real wide after she asks that, and I'm like, yeah, that's good. You would have died.
Yeah.
Like,
You would have gone where the packages are held.
you would have become a package. Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't know what it is about this episode. Just the fact that it turned uh just so quickly. Like, they're looking over to where they think they hear Santa, behind the tree, and all of a sudden this fucking tentacle comes out and drinks the milk. I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just tripping out on my couch, man. I was like, what the hell is going on? I was like scared for a second. It's crazy. But no, it was a lot of fun this episode, and kind of the only short that had this animation style. I know, what would you call this animation style? Like, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Coraline,
Yeah. There's a
almost.
term for it that I'm blanking on currently. Uh, it does. It looks a little bit like computer generated claymation.
Yeah. The,
It's very interesting, and I think it fit this episode very well because it's kind of a lighthearted sort of
mhm.
episode, So I think it fits the aesthetic for that well.
Yeah, yeah, and the juxtaposition of like the very innocent style of animation to this gnarly creature.
With like the eldritch horror of Santa
Yeah.
Claus.
Yeah, and like the detail of like the slime and the drool coming off of the packages is just so good. Like, it hands the package to her, and like it's just dripping off, and she's like, I thought I was about to die, but I'm getting handed a package. And then he gets his and he unwraps it and he's like, it's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
This is so good. um yeah, next up is Life Hutch, which is fucking crazy. Ted, you want to give us a synopsis on this one?
Yes. Michael B. Jordan.
Is it Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah, it's Michael B. Jordan. I
Dude,
looked. I was like,
yeah,
did they really they mocap Michael B. Jordan's ass in
I
this?
was,
He's in everything.
dude, I was wondering. I meant to go look it up, but I totally forgot. But I was like, that looks like Michael B. Jordan with the little mustache. Yeah. Anyways, synopsis time.
Yeah. So Michael B. Jordan plays a pilot who crash lands on a rocky planet after a space battle against an alien force. He's part of Space Force, of course, of course. He locates a nearby shelter, which is called a life hutch, obviously where the episode gets its name from.
Mm-hmm.
It's got, excuse me, it's that has also previously crash landed. He enters, all the automated systems come up, but the one of the robots inside malfunctions. Sorry, I had my brain just short circuited there. I malfunctioned, it did too, and begins attacking everything that moves, including him. He's injured, wounded, losing consciousness, and he's flashing back to the battle.
Mm-hmm.
He finally finds a way to access his flashlight and tricks the robot into attacking itself. And then he activates a rescue beacon and waits for aid. I like this episode. I thought the animation, again, this is another one that's like it show or goes for that super realistic look,
Right.
which I think it pulled off very well.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this is another great like classic sci-fi trope. It reminded me also a little bit of Jurassic Park from where they're in the kitchen.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
which I thought was cool. I don't know if that was intentional, but I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I could definitely see this being as like an homage to that scene, because I mean, talk about classic scenes in sci-fi slash horror movie history. Like, that scene is so goddamn iconic. um just hiding, using your small height to your advantage to hide from these creatures, dinosaurs, robots, what have you. But yeah, the part that got me was when the robot, I guess it thinks he's dead. He's actively playing dead, and so he like steps on his hand, and he can't make a sound or move to make sure that the robot still thinks he's dead. And then when the robot moves off, like, you see him pick up his hand, and like his pinky finger is just like hanging there. I was like, oh
Mhm.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah. um but no, I thought I loved the just the idea of tricking a robot into kicking the shit out of itself.
Yeah.
It's so like, it makes me think of how like you trick a cat with a laser pointer, or even a dog. Like, it kind of reminded me of that, except in a much more violent way. And I love the shot of like the final shot of him taking, what was it, his own leg, and beating the ever living bejesus out of it. And the very last shot is the perspective of the robot looking up at him. And you see, just the outline, and it's all like grainy and stuff, how the robot would see the human.
Mhm.
And of course the last line is the you know the the voice that's on the intercom or whatever. It's like, robot, maintenance robot malfunction, and he's like, no shit.
Yeah. I did not realize this, but this was adapted from a short story by Harlan Ellison.
Oh really? I don't know
Yeah,
who that is.
he's a famed sci-fi author
Oh, okay.
and notorious dick, also,
Really?
or at least combative. Let's
Oh,
say.
was he a friend of H.P. Lovecraft?
Um, no, dick in a different way.
Oh, gotcha. Um, but yeah, any other thoughts on Life Hutch before we move on to our last one?
No.
Cool. So our last but not least is the Drowned Giant, and this one was it was a little heavy as well. And I feel like it's pretty tonally different from the others, but not necessarily in a bad way. I really liked this one a lot, and I thought it was an interesting
Yeah,
way
I
to
think this
close it
is.
out.
I think this is the most like philosophical of
Oh,
this group.
for sure.
I think that it is also. In my opinion, at least, the heaviest of them. I think it's the most. It's the easiest to point to as being a metaphor for something else.
Yeah.
Um, but I love this episode. I actually, when I finished it, I immediately went back and restarted it.
Yeah, I
uh,
almost did the same thing, but I knew I was gonna rewatch it anyways. So yeah, I you mentioned it being um deeply metaphorical, working on multiple levels. I was curious to get your opinion on what you think those are. Like, I have an idea, but I was having a hard time like elaborating on it, or putting it into words that that made sense, which is kind of par for the course with everything in my life. But
fair.
yeah.
Um, I'll get to that. I think before I do though, we should probably give a synopsis of the episode so people
Sure.
aren't just like, "What the fuck are they talking about?"
Right, yeah. Good job.
um, yeah, woo, I know some things. Uh, anyway, in this short, a giant naked corpse of an unknown man washes up on the shore. And when I say giant, I'm speaking in comparison to everyone else. So imagine,
It's like the Canterbury Tales, right? Basically.
I was thinking of Gulliver's Travels.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah. I know what things
Um,
are. Not really.
that's kind of what I immediately went to. Anyway, he washes up on shore, so they call in the academics to come observe it, and find out what the fuck this is, because I'm assuming it's shocking to everyone. So they mount him and look at a few different things, and they encourage spectators to do this, to do the same. The narrator, who is one of the academics, he becomes entranced by the giant and decides to watch him from afar. He has a lot of musings throughout the episode as he's narrating,
Hmm.
talking about different philosophical perspectives, and goes on to talk about the desecration of the corpse as time goes on, people's waning interests, and then eventually how the giant is forgotten about and just kind of eventually disappears, and then speaks about how months later his remains, the remains of the giant, that has begun showing up in various parts of the town as different things.
Hmm.
There's one great shot where he's driving by and they see that he sees the barn with the skull next to it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that
Yeah,
was a skull at first. Like, I only caught that on my second go around. I was like, what the hell is this? I had to pause it and I was like, oh shit, it's the skull.
yeah. All that being said, excuse me, shout out to Wikipedia for letting me steal their lines. But all that being said, um, to me, this was pretty clearly a metaphor for um, mankind, and how we sort of have a less than respectful, I would say, interaction with everything, basically, from culture to our own past, and probably I would say most specifically, at least in my opinion, to how we treat the planet.
Hmm.
That was kind of my takeaway from it.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too. But like I said, I just had a hard time putting it into words. It kind of made me think of that. I wish I knew the name of this artist. It's a female, and we learned about her in one of my art classes in college. But she had this exhibit where she basically just stood there and let people do whatever to her. So, people would like scream profanities at her and like, push her and shove her, just to like show what people are capable of, letting them, or giving them carte blanche to do whatever to another individual. And it is just truly disgusting. And that's what I kind of thought of when I saw this was, like you said, it didn't take long at all for people that discovered this corpse to figure out how they can profit with it or off of it.
Hmm.
They, like you said, they desecrated it. People were, obviously doing graffiti, and he shows up after several weeks of coming, and the head is gone. Um,
Yeah, they cut off one of his arms.
right.
Yeah.
Um,
Were you talking about Marina Abramovich?
that's possible. I mean, I learned about her, like I said, it's been several years. So
Yeah, her famous, I think it was in like 74, 75. Her famous exhibit where she stood there and there was a table with like 70 or 75 items that
yeah,
that people could come up and interact. Yeah, that was
yeah,
Marina
yep.
Abramovich.
That's her. Thank
I'm
you.
probably mispronouncing her last name, but that's who it was.
Cool. Thank you for getting that info for me. Um, but yeah, this one, you know, you could focus on the depressing aspects of it if you wanted, but there is a lot of good material in here. His narration is fucking flawless. Big props to the voice actor that voiced this animated character. He did a fantastic job. Big props to the writers that wrote the dialogue. And I thought it was oddly inspiring when he was driving around town, like to, like you mentioned, after everyone started to forget about the corpse being a thing. You saw pieces of him showing up around town. Like, I thought that was kind of I don't know, I want to say fun, but like that's not necessarily the right word. It's like, I guess, humbling, maybe. I don't know, but you know, he was smiling. I feel like he's supposed to be like the moral center of the story, you know, because he's a scientist. He was there to observe, and you know, he didn't do anything to the corpse that was derogatory or for personal gain. Um, so, you know, I feel like what, you know, his feelings towards the subject matter was kind of like true north as to what you're supposed to feel. And so, you know, he comes across the butcher shop, and you see the big, you know, femur or whatever hanging above the marquee, or awning or whatever that was. That was, you know, kind of humorous. And then you mentioned the skull, so yeah, I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting towards the end there.
Yeah, I agree. It was, like I said, probably my favorite episode of the bunch. Although it's not like there was a bad one.
Yeah.
Overall, like I said, I dug this one. I thought it had. I thought it had a lot of high points and very few low points. Like I said, I didn't think there was a bad episode in the bunch. There were a couple of moments where I was like, okay, all right, sure, sure. But overall, I think it was a very strong season.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, super psyched for the third volume coming out, and so glad that it's not going to be too long. Just have to wait until the fall. So
Mm-hmm.
that's that's super exciting. So yeah, Ted, if you don't have any more thoughts on Love, Death, and Robots Volume 2, we can segue into our segment that is Shit That Doesn't Suck.
Yes, let's do that.
All right, let's do it.
Shit that doesn't suck.
I'm a huge fan of like B movies and classic horror films from like the 50s and 60s and B movies from like the 50s and 60s. So I've been on a big kick of those. And last night, for the first time in a while, I revisited the original House on Haunted Hill from 1959, I think it was, or 1960.
Nice.
Um, with you know, Vincent Price, who's the goat. Man, that movie fucking rules. And if you don't like it, you're wrong. I don't know what else to say. That's just all there is to it. So yeah, House on Haunted Hill from 1959. It rules.
Right on. My shit that doesn't suck is the brand new season of Master of None, which is a huge change up from the first two seasons. If you're familiar with it, or if you're not familiar with it, rather, you know, it's directed and co-written by Aziz Ansari, and the first two seasons was, you know, focused around Aziz Ansari's character, but the third season has a pretty dramatic shift. He still has a small role in it, but he's more of a, you know, a second or tertiary character, and the main character is his black lesbian friend that had a reoccurring role in the first two seasons, and it explores her relationship with her girlfriend or fiance, and it's just very interesting. It you know what this show has always done very well is it explores all the facets of life for like your typical millennial, or you know, Gen Y individual, including, you know, the issues of love and race and sexuality and just the whole spectrum of stuff that, you know, our generation kind of deals with, along with just what every generation deals with, but you know, particularly what we deal with at this point in time at this age. And I'm not quite done with it yet. I think I have one episode left, but it's excellent. Kind of sad. It's pretty sad at moments, but very very good. So yeah. Master of none.
All right, right on. Well, that's another one in the books.
Yep. Another one bites
Woo.
the dust.
Do-do-do-dum-dum. So thank you all for tuning in. We hope that it wasn't too painful of an experience, but actually don't really care. You can find us on our website, geekgaragepodcast.com. You can also find us on all the social medias by searching Geek Garage Podcast. We are most active on the Facebook group, Geek Garage Podcast fans and listeners. That's where we post all of our fancy polls, like the one we talked about at the beginning of the show. Excuse me. If you like what you heard, God knows why, but if you did, you can find us on all the major social media, all the major podcasting platforms. Follow, subscribe, like, whatever the call to action is for each of those. It costs you nothing. You can also leave a review where applicable, which also costs you nothing. We only accept, however, 1 stars or 5 stars.
Yes.
None of this middle of the road bullshit.
Yep.
You commit. You love us or you hate us. There is no, they're okay.
Yep. Commit to the bit. God damn it.
That's right. If you would like to support the podcast in ways that might cost you a little bit of your hard-earned doll hairs, we do have a Patreon.
Yeah, we do.
Tiers start as low as $2 and then go up to $5, which is not a lot of money. But I'm not going to beg you for it. So you make your own decisions. If you would like to throw us money, that's cool. Things that we use that money for are none of your business, but it's definitely not cocaine and hookers. We put them towards good things like cocaine. Oh, you almost got me.
Yeah.
You almost got me. No, we put that money back into the show for things like hosting fees and podcasting is actually kind of fucking expensive, you guys. I don't know if you know that.
It's you can do it on the cheap, but your podcast is going to sound like you do it on the cheap. So
yes, and then we'll mock you for being poor. So
yes,
it's a lose-lose for you, really.
Right.
But no, if you feel so inclined, check us out on Patreon. You can find us there. You do get some cool perks like a free unique button and sticker set that is only available for patrons, as well as some other things that we're working on, including discounts of some kind to David's Etsy shop, the Geek Garage. Is it Geek Garage Gear?
Yep.
Geek Garage, I don't know. David's Etsy shop. Gear. That's what I know it as.
Yep. Geek Garage Gear. And then we're going to start incorporating some video into the podcast fairly soon. I'm still in the middle of working out the logistics and the setup and equipment of all that, but we're very excited to bring that to you. We know that video has been highly requested, so that will probably roll out for Patreon donors first. Just because the Patreon donors,
special.
Yeah, the ones that we've had for quite a while.
We got to give them something. Fuck, at this point, we can't just keep stringing them along.
Yeah.
I think that wraps it up. David, is there anything else I'm missing?
I think that's about it, Ted.
All right. Well, do the thing.
All right, do the thing. Watch more movies because movies make life better. Oh, that's not it.
That is true.
It is true, but that should be your saying. It should be you should say that, and then I can do the be kind, stay geeky, and eat lots of cheesecake one.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try it for next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'll be kind, stay geeky, and eat lots of cheesecake. Oy, 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 oy. I don't know why I do that.
No one does. It's provocative.
All right. Bye.
This is where the music goes.
Get out of the refrigerator right now! It's oh my god!
Get off the shed!
Get the fuck down here, you fucking pussy!
All right, that's out of our systems. I don't know where that came from.
Screaming at cats. Classic YouTube.